specifically, we've discussed Lindsay Avenue, which is from Faulkner Street to Arbutus Street on the north end of the city, northeast end of the city, is paper street as of right now. We've had neighbors, specifically Mr. Zaney, who was here, and others express interest in purchasing parts of that paper street due to the fact that there are numerous amounts of dead ash on the property that have not been taken care of by the city. In addition to that, we have these three descriptions of Lindsay Avenue to be abandoned, and they were divided up by our surveyor based upon other paper streets that intersect through that area, specifically Bar and Margaret Street. We've asked for the abandonment of Margaret Street, which is a paper street, from Lindsay Avenue to Woodlawn Avenue. Specifically, this is to prevent cars from continuously driving through that area, but we have reserved an easement for pedestrian foot traffic to go through that area due to the fact it's used as a footpath for the neighborhood. Any thoughts, questions, comments? We'd like a recommendation to move forward with these street abandonments. And then Mr. Zaney is a longtime resident of Margaret Street, if you have any questions for him.
Was there ever a guardrail or fence at the end of Margaret there? You think that would help?
I had to have it, it's gonna look tacky. We just wanna bring the woods back and have an actual footpath and not a car path,
How much land are we talking about? What is it?
50 feet,
Pardon?
it's like 50 feet.
Really?
Yeah.
50 feet wide or?
It's
50 by
25
50?
by 50,
It's 0.3 acres.
yeah. It's not a lot of space, but it's just, when you go up Margaret and you get to the crest where my mailbox is, it goes down to that section where the woods is, and nobody ever abides by the dead end signs, and they just go. We've been there, it's going on 7 years now, and now I've seen multiple cars just go flying through those woods, and we get a lot of people walk through there. I mean, we have a lot of deer in there too, but it's kind of a dangerous, because the trees, where the trees are where the path is, it's tight. Because if you bring your truck through there, you can almost touch trees on either side of the mirrors. It's not a very wide spot, but when cars go through, it's pretty rough. The city's lost, I think, the time we've been up there, 3 times they've had dump trucks that go too far, and then they go in the ravine, and then they slide down. I've only had we've had one car that it was almost a launch. Like, it was going through the woods, and it just gonna go through. So it is kind of, it's a walking path. A lot of people from the Woodlawn area, James and Dunn Street, will walk up in that neighborhood, because there's no other way, because Bar's closed. You can't go anywhere on Bar Street, and Arbutus, that's a dead end too. So the only way to cut through to get up to that section is that little path. So we just figured, I maintain it now, and might as well continue to maintain it.
Well, the whole length of that paper street for Lindsay is what, about 637 feet or something like that? Looking at some of the descriptions from the surveyor.
About 536 feet.
It says 350. It says 536.
Lindsay cuts through on both sides of my yard.
536.
So I have, where my house is on Margaret, Lindsay cuts through my whole entire yard. So, I mow on either side. I own the property on both sides.
That's a map that shows the whole length. Faulkner Street to Arbutus.
So we make a recommendation to abandon them, and then the city can then sell them by the parcel, or you can divide it up.
So that's something that Mark and I are working on for the first time. The first part is correct. You would make the recommendation as the planning commission to abandon the property. How those properties are sold is subject to the DPW director upon the advisement of the corporation council. And my biggest thing is, I want the surveys to match whatever we have on the deed, so we're legally accurate there. But as far as parcels, I know I'm not going to speak for you, but I will. Your big thing is you don't want any landlocked city properties.
Yeah, we want to make sure that, because there are situations around the city where they've sold parts of right of way, but then there's no access to that right of way where they miss a section. So we need to be careful that we don't do that. Where we don't have a chunk of 50 feet that the city's all of a sudden responsible for, and we have no way of
Well,
gaining
you know,
access to.
the section from Margaret that goes from Lindsay down to the 3 parcels that are landlocked now,
Mhm.
nobody wants that.
Mhm.
Nobody wants that section of Lindsay, you know?
And that is
But the
subject
thing
to.
is, if you had to get down to them, it's gonna cost you a fortune.
So the topography through there is quite difficult too
Mhm.
then.
Well, that and there's, I mean, just picturing this morning, there's gotta be 9 trees covering that road right now. City doesn't do anything with them, but none of, me and Anna Lee don't. We own the property going down that section, but we don't really wanna do anything with it. You know, cause there's 3 landlocked position properties underneath Anna Lee's house going down the hill. There's 3 of them right there. And if she didn't pick them up, it's full of trees that need to be taken down and they keep falling on everybody else's property. And that's what I'm saying with Margaret, every time a tree falls over where the walking path is,
This will come up.
nobody else comes up,
Last
you
one.
know? On Lindsay, I have manicured all that, I've spent $8,000 to take care of that property. I'm not asking for it back, but I've already got, I mean, by the end of probably next year, I'll be over 10 with the amount of investment. Because all the ash trees that are on that property, is the city gonna take care of them? No. Every time they fall down, I take care of them. City doesn't ever come up.
I can relate to some of the things that you're talking about. The house that I bought years ago had woods, if you will, all behind it, up on Howard Street. And there was also a grade that went up to South Main.
Okay,
And it's been a lot of work. And I've got 2 sides of that big block of forest, if you will, on each side of my lot, which I finished cleaning out from the people years ago. And it's tough. A lot of planning, if you will, by the city and others years ago created some real problems.
Yeah, cause I mean, we
Yeah,
maintain it
little
all.
things like that that then go together, but nobody ever tries to take care of it and change it before it gets to be a real problem.
Right now, there's, in that section between Margaret Street all the way to Bar Street, or where my property is between the 2, there's probably a good $10,000 worth of trees that need to be cut down. Cause you gotta figure, if the city does it with their guys, it's probably a cost of maybe $1,000. And my cost is probably $1,400, $1,600 a tree, because I gotta get the wood chipped out, and, you know, we've already had to take care of 4, I'm already in it for thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
If, I'm not gonna let it sit there on the ground, cause then my property looks like crap. And I refuse for my property to look bad, because between where my house is and Anna Lee's house, it's a gorgeous area. It's probably one of the rarest spots up in Jamestown is to live up there, because it's perfectly quiet, it's like not living in the city.
no. And I can understand the problem with the trees and stuff, because I've got 8 trees that are kind of a problem in the way, but they're on the edge of my property and not on mine.
See, these, if we look at the trees that are on the
Yeah,
city's
and
right
they're
away,
about 80 feet high now.
yeah, there's some big ones up
Yeah,
there.
so I got a quote of about $5,000 a tree just to trim them.
But I told my wife
So
that,
5 times 8 is 40,000, and I haven't tried to jump on that at this point.
I told my wife I'd get her a new chainsaw so she could take care of those ones. I made her do the one that fell not that long ago. I was like, oh my goodness, we were having dinner and you just watched it.
Yeah,
And it just slowly came down and it hit the ground and I looked at her and I'm like, hey, look, this is the after dinner treat. Let's go clean that up.
well, I would vote aye on you going ahead.
Only one of these needs a walking path easement.
Yes, so, for example, you know, the Lindsay Avenue property is totally covered by forest, trees, and, you know, some of it's navigable, most of it isn't. And I suppose patios, you don't want people back there anyway if you're any of the homeowners in those areas.
No, we've kept the homeless out, it's been kind of a problem.
I know,
Is there any, if it's a public easement, anyone can use it?
yes, so right now I run through there, on my running route, but, you know, to speak to, so it's a public easement, you know, the other members of the neighborhood, go through there, walking there, because it's the easiest way to cut through instead of going around. And then, you know, it's a walking path easement, so therefore there should be no camping. You know, not to expand, but now I'm gonna expand since you got me talking. You know, one of the tough things is I run through the 100-acre lot, and I actually trespass through Lutheran's area as well on my way to Faulkner, and you have a continuous problem of homeless encampments starting to sprout in that area, which are dangerous, but also ruin. And now I'm going to more speak, but you know, we have the Roger Tory Peterson Institute right there, which is a wonderful nature area, and we have almost a continuous nature bird watching, viable nature area in that area. And to have that all connected would be a dream of mine. But I think, you know, in this case for Lindsay Avenue, you want to prevent transients from going through that area, but keep that accessibility with the walking path through.
Cause it's mostly just gonna be like it's mostly just people who grew up in the neighborhood. I mean, it's not like we have people that, you know, come to Jamestown and go, ooh, I gotta go up to Margaret Street and walk down the path. No, it's not it's not that special, it's just a little path. But,
It's a weird area that starts because of RTPI, the college. And
cause you
then
come
move
off of
around.
Marvin Parkway, you got the path. So you got the path off of Marvin, goes through, Rogatory, you go right over to the 100-acre, you can go right into the Curtis Street Farm, and then you're on the paths of back behind Lutheran. And it's the only thing that we can, you know.
Well, and that's, you know, enforcement of public easement is something that where I was going with that. And as if the neighbors want that, or if it's necessary. But I know.
It's not gonna be advertised as like a rails to trails path.
No,
No.
no. It's not like we have a lot of vehicles that come up there. I mean, usually when I look out my kitchen window, I will not see cars for days other than the mailman. No cars. There's very rare, but then you get somebody who just, the problem is it's when people are searching for something, and I don't wanna say it in a bad way, but when they're looking at places to, you know, visit during the day when no one's home. That's one of the things is they come up there and they'll check things out. But luckily for me, Annalee Rose is home every day, and she walks out in her front yard when somebody's there, but she's not gonna do that forever. I mean, we like it quiet up there, and we like to just keep it quiet.
It'd be nice if the property's back on the tax rolls and owned and maintained by residents who wanna take care of it.
Stop having Mr. Zane call about, you know, ash trees.
Oh, I'm sure Dan doesn't want to hear from me. Well, the thing is he basically told me, you know, it's like, the city don't want to take care of this anymore, really, you know? Because there's a massive amount of trees. There's probably, I mean, not just ash, there's other trees, you have Douglas firs, there's 2 of those on there, then there's this massive black walnut tree on that corner. I mean, there's 20+ trees between Margaret and Bar Street that are frail. It's gonna cost me a fortune, but I would rather do it myself.
Are the only people eligible to bid to purchase the properties are the ones who have adjoining properties, or?
So the way that we're gonna do it is the adjoining properties have the right of first refusal.
Okay.
basically. So we'll send out letters to all the adjoining properties saying, would you like to, do you want this section of this paper street that you will buy?
How you'll first define the section.
Yes. Yeah.
So would that work for Lindsay, because I own on both sides?
So you would get a letter and you would just say yes.
But you would send a letter to Grant to ask him if he wanted the land?
If you own both sides, you wouldn't get a letter.
Okay, so I was gonna say, cause I mean, we have both sides all the way to Phil Rose's property.
So yeah, you would just get for any section that you abut, you'll just get a letter and just say yes.
And then
just
Margaret Street, we own both sides of that
Then
too.
you'll just get a letter. You just have to sign it basically and return it to us. That's all.
So they have right of first refusal and then.
Yep. but it's just a paper.
You know, part of Lindsay though, if you go up, 'cause you don't own it by the Kennel Club, do you? No? Or the former East
No,
Side
no, no,
Kennel
that's
Club?
Phil. I don't understand why Phil hasn't said anything, because we have had a lot of people walking through those woods.
Okay,
And Phil owns from his house on Woodlawn all the way over to, Charlotte.
okay.
He bought all of that. And, you know, we tried, I asked Phil, I told him, I'm like, if you ever wanna sell it, I'll take it.
Now you've got a police union there too, which you think would discourage
It doesn't.
the people.
The problem is people hop the fence. I mean, you know, we were in the backyard one day playing with the dog, and then I see this kid, well, kids, they're, you know, probably teenagers, I don't know, maybe young adults, but they come walking out of the woods with their bags, and they're yelling at me because the dog's barking at them. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Negative.
As long as you're doing the job.
In
No.
today's world,
I'm like,
though,
you
people-
hop the fence, obviously you're in the wrong. But no, they just kept on walking, they ignored us and walked right through Berg's house, walked right down through Berg's, walked right between Berg's driveway and right over into the road, and then walked over. I'm like,
it's funny in today's world though, that people yelling at you is much more common than what it used to be.
yeah, there's a lot of people that just ignore it.
We've done well in this country, we really turned things upside down now for a while. I think what he's doing though is good and we should be supportive of it.
Oh, and
I really do,
if you
'cause
drive up there, it
Yeah.
looks beautiful.
And the thing is, if we pay as a city attention to those kinds of things, we can take what is basically a forest and turn it into something that's good for the whole neighborhood. And that's an important thing when it comes to value of property and other things like that too. That's the realtor side of me that's speaking.
Any other questions?
Nope.
So what would an appropriate motion be to this?
I'd say just a motion to approve, you know, these, the recommendation that the properties as described in the surveys of Matt White being from Lindsay Avenue from Faulkner Street to Arbutus as divided into 3 sections, as well as Margaret Street from Lindsay Avenue to Woodlawn Avenue be abandoned.
Sounds like a lot of land.
Actually, Lindsay, I mean, Lindsay
Is that
down
okay?
from Faulkner
Okay.
Street up is what, like 30 feet of road? It's basically a driveway between 2 houses now. And then you have the water dump of wherever that drain goes from the bottom of Lindsay, you know? But
The quicksand
I'm
area.
sure that whoever lives on either side of that property would maybe scoop it up, maybe they don't want to.
Yeah, Mrs. Laverme's on one side.
Well,
Does
the
anyone like-
Lavermes don't own any property that butts up to Lindsay.
Oh, they don't?
I have it.
Oh,
When I bought the property from the Petros, for some
I'm just
reason,
gonna
they
adopt
had,
your
they
words.
bought it. So I actually own next to Anna Lee's house on the other side on 306 Margaret. So it goes Anna Lee and me. And then she's got another plot of land, and then there's 3 city plots that are attached to Lindsay. And then you have a house that's on Woodlawn that butts up where the old garage used to be,
Yes.
which they finally tore down and got rid of. But that whole area there is dead trees and skunk cabbage.
I think there's another advantage to the city in this though too, that if we could straighten this out and clean it up, properties in that area are gonna be worth more money and we'll pay more taxes eventually. Maybe not more taxes, but there'll be more value.
The other thing is that section there is all landlocked. The section that the city owns, that's a land, those 3 lots, those are landlocked. You know? And we actually, me and Julie, Julie's my wife, we actually talked about if those 3 come up, that, you know, if the price is right, that we would maybe buy them.
Are these separate from Lindsay Avenue?
They're off of Lindsay,
Oh,
underneath Anna Lee's property. There's
okay.
3 of them.
So behind the
the
Spo's.
3 directly behind her?
I can show you.
Are those the ones by Jerry Spoto's,
No.
driveway?
No, those ones are, what's her name?
That's Anna Lee's there.
Okay, it's there's 3 of them down here,
Okay.
and they come down Lindsay. Yeah.
Do you own these ones there?
No, Anna Lee owns one of them, and then there's three of those lots are city owned. But,
New people in the Johnsons own
Was there a
those.
motion made?
yeah,
Not yet.
her property.
Would you like to make a
in
motion?
Off of Lindsay.
Well, I don't know if I
Anna
could
Lee
repeat what
bought
Elliot
it.
had said.
Maybe you did call her,
Okay.
but if nobody was,
Yeah.
So I think the wording is, I can't make a motion myself as a city employee, right? But I would like a motion to be made for the abandonment of Lindsay Avenue from Faulkner Street to Arbutus Street as described by the surveys of Matthew White. And a second motion to be made for the abandonment of Margaret Street from Lindsay Avenue to Woodlawn Avenue as described by the survey of Matthew White.
And Tom, you wanted to make that motion?
So, I would move that we abandon Lindsay Avenue to
From Faulkner Street
Faulkner Street,
to Arbutus
Arbutus.
Avenue
Mhm.
and Margaret Street.
And then, would it be the same motion, Margaret Street to,
From Lindsay Avenue
from Lindsay Avenue
to Woodlawn.
to Woodlawn? Okay. This is an area I'm really unfamiliar with, over by the college, this is Brett's ward, I think, right?
it's up
Yeah,
at the top.
yeah.
This is, and do we have a second?
So moved.
Jeff seconds. All right.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Alright,
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business for the commission?
I think I'd like to say one thing with regards to this. I've looked at a lot of things in the city as being a real estate broker and a developer and a house builder and some of these kinds of things, and worked with a lot of people as to what they look for in housing. Things like this are very important to do and to make it better. But it does go maybe with different kinds of subjects. It goes widely through this community that there's been all kinds of changes, making a difference as to how people can live in their homes. Some of it's their own changes. Years ago, you only had one car, now you got two. You need room for garages, you need room for drive spaces, and we squeezed houses together for many, many years in this city. And we've got to look to giving people room. Before they didn't care because it was handheld, push the old reel mowers. Nowadays, you can have a big lot, you can take care of it easy, and people look for those things. So we need to, I think, explore that or look through it, talk through it as we go forward, because those kinds of things are gonna become important. And I think everybody knows the city's suffering somewhat now, and there's some scary things in the loop, and that can be a big help in making changes.
Thank you. All right. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Meeting again next week, right, for the planning commission?
Yes,
19th?
regular monthly meeting next week, yes.
Yeah. I thought this was being highlighted.
I know.